Hello and welcome to Friday Reads the Second. This is a series where I talk about books that I've read this week and I film it on Friday and upload it on Saturday. So welcome Saturday, even though it says Friday. And this was just such a needed week. I had reading break this week and I was kind of talking about how stressed I was all the time, and just having a week where I could rest and I could take care of myself and read some books and not read some books was really good. So I didn't do a ton of reading this week, but I did read some things that I didn't like so much. I started a lot of things that I did like, so we're just going to chat about them. First of all, it is the 29th currently, and I started my Halloween picks, and this was Misery by Stephen King. I convinced my roommate to read Pet Sematary, and she finished it in August, and she really liked it, so we immediately started reading The Shining together, and we just spent like a day listening to it, and it was just such a lovely experience. So we decided that we were going to do Misery that way, and now 2 months later it's Halloween, so we decided it would be a great idea to read it for an early Halloween kind of thing. So we've started that. We're about 5 hours in, and I'm really enjoying it. It definitely shows its age. It has a fair bit of fat phobia. It has a fair bit of metaphors about sexual assault that really shouldn't be in here at all. It is written in the 1980s, but I'm not going to excuse it for that reason, but I do think that that's an important pinpoint of history of where it is. It could have definitely been done better. I'm enjoying it. I'm really enjoying the kind of everyday horror of it and the way that it is. If you're not familiar with Misery by Stephen King, this is a story about a woman who kidnaps her favorite author, and he has broken legs so he can't move, and she has him drugged and he is in pain and he can't do anything, and she has certain thoughts about the way that he should write, and they're painful. She makes him destroy part of the writing that he worked on for 2 years, and I was so physically uncomfortable, it was painful. So that was fun. On another wonderful note, I have started Mole Flanders again. This is the 1722 novel by Daniel Defoe, and it is about a woman who was a thief, who was a courtesan, or, woman who was hired for her actions. I don't know. She goes throughout different marriages, different men, different jobs. Very interesting to see this part where she was in a thing for women who were pregnant and how they could kind of conveniently get around that. And then she remarries again, and she's really talking about the fact that it has a very sarcastic tone, and it's it's just amazing how much, not being poor allows me to make better moral decisions with my life. The greatest snare is poverty. I think that it does a fairly good job of talking about how people who are, living day to day have a lot less options, and we really villainize people and then tell them that they deserve to be poor or they should stay in those things because, they steal or they do other things. And it's yeah, no, it's a lot easier to have a moral high ground when you also have the money to back up your moral high ground. I really appreciate that it's really snarky in that way, and I really love the tone of it as well. Most of my reading energy has really been focused toward the Booker and trying to get that done. So I finished The Passage North, and it was rough. There was a lot of elements that I did enjoy, but I really just don't think that fiction was the right conduit of this story. He really wanted to talk about all of these themes. He missed the Tamil genocide in Sri Lanka. He tried to talk about themes without ever making me feel connected to the characters, and I really liked the grandmother. I really liked Rainey. I really liked hearing more about Anjan, and they were really interesting characters. I just never really got to see their scenes play out. We only ever got scenes of remembrance through his head, and his head was just so stuck in his head, which I normally like, but I think that I really struggle with stories that are really stuck in head of men. So when it's so much filtered through one point of view and it's through a guy's point of view, I think that I have a very hard time relating. There's just elements of our experiences that are never going to completely overlap, and I think that that might be part of it. And from there I moved on to Bewilderment, and I was slightly nervous of this because I'm a little bit nervous whenever autism is represented from a caregiver's point of view rather than the person who has autism. I thought throughout a lot of this it wasn't the best representation, but it was also representation that didn't necessarily further stigma. In fiction in general, we tend to, squash the complexities of 9-year-old kids, and he did have complexity. He just was either troubled or genius, didn't feel like he was perfectly a real person, and then at the end, I don't want to spoil it, but they did him wrong. If he wanted to talk about autism, if he wanted to talk about the importance of young people, if he wanted to talk about all of these elements, the way that he ended it is a slap in the face. I was listening to the audiobook and I just sat there through what was, I guess, supposed to be the climax and was no. You're not telling me that this is how you're going to end it. I cannot believe this is real. And when they did it, and I was like, that is just a slap in the face to anyone who's autistic, to anyone it is. I get that it might be trying to do a kind of futile, nihilistic point of view, but that's not really a point of view that I'm that interested in, I guess. And yes, I'm judging the book by its like, but I think that this would be a directly harmful book for anyone who has autism. So like, I just was not impressed by it. Parts of it were beautiful, parts of it were lovely. I enjoyed elements of, you know, talking about space and talking about the complexities of grief and things like that. And some moments even made me almost cry, but like, throughout, the autism representation just was not that great. And in the end, and then talking about other books that have like not great like random jokes about autism, we have No One Is Talking About This, which is a book that I again have very moments that are like really really profound and a lot of moments that make me incredibly frustrated. So I am about a third of the way through this and I am planning on finishing it by the end of October. So this is a weekend journey for this because the 31st is Sunday. So let's see how far we get into this. It is really profound in elements, and we have a line that she says in one of her little vignettes, which is, when a person has a fever of a few degrees for a week, it can kill them. And we think the earth can raise a few degrees for years on end and not have any damage at all. And I was like, that's a really, really good way of talking about climate change. So I appreciated that. There was one about V-Day that I really appreciated, about how we kind of look at these things as victory when sometimes they have, you know, predatoriness underneath them. It's a little bit like Oscar Wilde in Dorian Gray, where he's trying to be really quippy, and to me it just feels really really hollow without heart. But it's also a book that like a lot of people love, you know, Dorian Gray, and a lot of people love this book, so it might just not be my kind of book. I'm excited for the second half because it's supposed to be more deeper and more, you know, her kind of unraveling herself from this and to be hopefully less Vignette-y. So even though I love vignettes, it's just not the vignette that I'm loving. I had many dreams, Victober, and I am not accomplishing many of them. I have finished 2 so far. I finished Cranford and really, really loved it. And I just finished The Woman in White and it was pretty good. Like, it again was not my favorite book of all time, but it was a good book that I enjoyed a lot. The mystery was really interesting and I really enjoyed following the characters, especially Walter and Marion. I thought some of the dialogue, especially around Marion, was pretty sexist, and around Anne it was pretty ableist. But overall, I give it a 3.5 star. I enjoyed it. I don't think I'll be rereading it, but if you like that kind of story, if you like gothic, if you like mystery, I really recommend it. The Woman in White has no supernatural elements in it at all, and that definitely surprised me because I thought it did. And for weekend plans for ending Victober, I hope to read A Sign of 4 by Arthur Conan Doyle, the second book in Sherlock Holmes. So hopefully that will be done. Hopefully I'll read that tomorrow and finish so I can have at least 3 books for October, but you know, who knows? I will read Victober books around the year and they just won't happen necessarily in the month that I wanted them to happen. And there's 2 books that I haven't read a lot of, but I am enjoying so far, and this is Deina, and this is by Norma Dunning, and this is going to be on my Indigenathon TBR, which was posted today, which is really exciting. I'm really happy to be participating in this, and I started this because it's an ebook, and I wasn't sure if I would like it, because ebooks are not normally my thing, and I got like really enmeshed immediately. Like, I thought it was fantastic, and I just had to like pull my eyes away. It was like late and I needed to go to bed and I was just supposed to be reading it, and I was like, I just want to read this. It's a collection of short stories playing on an Inuit name for Unseen One, so it's really kind of looking at these people's stories, and it is up for the Governor General Award in Canada, which is super exciting, and I think that I'm going to love it if it continues on as good as I'm enjoying it now. And then last but not least, because you know I'm really really enjoying it, is Creature by Amina Kane. I talked about Indelicacy last week. It is a book that I really really loved, and this is her short story and her only other published work other than Indelicacy, so I'm really excited to read this. It is kind of similar to Shirley Jackson again. It is with a woman who moved to this new town to kind of start her whole life, and I don't know how to describe her work because it's all in the way that she writes, but I don't think that I can describe the way that she writes well. But I would really recommend Indelicacy, and if you like Indelicacy, then Creature is very interesting. It's about 100 pages. I think I'm about 20 pages in so far, and every single line is so beautiful and so gorgeous, and I'm adoring it. Tell me what your favorite book that you read in the last week, or a book you're excited to read in November, and I will talk to you guys soon.